Good Thursday morning to you all. Welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe. That is Nick Wright. Chris Broussard is sitting next to me this morning. I couldn't be happier about that. What's up, Chris?
What's happening?
We have a big Thursday morning show for you today, but we will start with a big Thursday night show that is scheduled for this evening. Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens hosting the Jets tonight, Thursday Night Football. Lamar has his Ravens team on a 9-game win streak right now, with his eyes set on three things. One, breaking Michael Vick's single-season quarterback rushing record. Two, clinching the Ravens' second straight divisional title. And three, proving that his quad injury is nothing to worry about. Nick, we'll start with you. Let's start there. Should the runaway MVP change his style of play until that quad heals?
I think tonight is a really good opportunity for Lamar, absent of the quad injury. I don't think that it's about the quad injury, to get back on track in the one part of his game, and the one part of the Ravens game that's been lacking during this winning streak, and that's their downfield passing game. And if you're limited in that regard because he has the leg injury and he's not as much of a running threat, then so be it. You're up against a very limited opponent, an opponent that might be without some of its best players, a team that doesn't have that many high-quality players to begin with. But the sneaky story behind Lamar and the Ravens' success this season has been he hasn't thrown for 250 yards since week 4. The first 4 weeks of the year, he threw for at least 247 in every week, but they were only 2-2. Since then, during this 9-game winning streak, he's thrown for 175 yards per game. Now, he has been awesome because the defense has been improved. His running is so difficult to account for, and he's taking care of the football. But when you look at, like, Willie Snead, who is their second leading receiver, Broussard, he hasn't had 20 yards receiving since October 6th. Hollywood Brown, who is their leading receiver, has only 3 games with 50 yards receiving. Miami, Arizona, Cincinnati, 3 of the worst pass defenses in football. So I'm not saying any of this to take something away from Lamar. What I am saying is the Ravens right now are the favorites to win the Super Bowl. In order for that to happen, they're going to have to beat 3 consecutive high-quality opponents, 3 teams that are going to ostensibly, at least 2 of them, have high-quality pass defenses. They need to start working on some of their outside-of-the-numbers passing. I think tonight's a really good opportunity for them to do that. And if it's part of it's because Lamar's a little hampered in the run game, all the better.
Yeah, I'm with you. In theory, this makes all the sense in the world. And look, you got a bruised quad. And he's telling everybody, and he's right, it happened in the pocket while he was passing the footballs, not while he was running. However, Earl Thomas, Lamar Jackson, and others have said now you see defenses going for his legs a lot more. When he's in the pocket, you can't hit him low.
Yep.
So for health's sake, it makes sense to stay in the pocket. Once you start running the ball, as you know, you are a running back, and teams, in addition to trying to stop you, they will be going for your legs because teams want to slow you down for that game and then even maybe for the future. So I think from a health standpoint, it makes sense to change things up. And then what you said is right. They do have to work on their outside passing game, him getting receivers involved. The Jets also are a good team defensively against the rush. Yep. They're one of the best in the league. They're mediocre, really bottom half against the pass. So this is a game you figure you could win even if you're not at your best. So why not work on these things? So theoretically, I'm with you. In reality, I think they're going to play the way they play. I think Lamar will. He's downplaying the injury. He says, I'm 100%. John Harbaugh says it's not a serious injury. And you mentioned what you said is really important. When he was throwing for more yards, they weren't winning as much. They weren't this dominant team. It's because of the run. And so I just think John Harbaugh and Lamar, they both seem, I don't want to say stubborn in a negative way, but they want to do things their way. So I think they're going to just go out there and play their football game because they also need to win. They need to make sure they win so they can
wins and
continue
they lock
to
up
be the number 1
seed.
seed.
This is also a good chance to see where their defense is. We know they're a good defense. I like this matchup. I mean, Lamar was on the board when the Jets were like, let's take Sam Darnold. He's our future. 29 picks later, they went with Lamar. And a couple weeks ago, we heard Sam Darnold say, I'm seeing ghosts against that Patriot. It was a Patriots defense, yes. I think. What do you think he's going to to say with this Baltimore Ravens defense?
Since the Ravens added Marcus Peters, they have been arguably and statistically the best pass defense in football. They've surpassed what New England was doing just in this stretch of time. And this Ravens defense got secondary. The secondary got healthy, pardon me. And they also added a true elite level playmaker in Peters. People forget, I don't think people watched Marcus Peters as much in Kansas City as I did when the Chiefs took him. Coach Mangini said he was one of the highest rated players he had evaluated as far as skill set standpoint. And he came to Kansas City and he was an absolute ball hawk. There were some personality issues. There were some issues with ownership about maybe some of Marcus's stances. They ship him out to the Rams. And with Los Angeles, really, the most notable moment from him was getting beat last year against New Orleans and looking around when Michael Thomas is streaking for a touchdown, the play where Michael Thomas, if you remember, pulled out the cell phone right after, and it was really controversial. The moment he got to Baltimore, he got back to being the Marcus Peters from Kansas City. That Ravens defense, now with Earl Thomas having almost a full season under his belt, is reminding people he is still one of, if not the elite safety in football. And then you have Humphreys and you have Smith and you have the ageless Brandon Carr. So yeah, this is a tough putt for Sam Darnold. It's one of the reasons why I think offensively, Chris, the Ravens can experiment a bit. I understand what you're saying, which is, and I do think week 17 against Pittsburgh, if they haven't clinched the 1 seed yet, then yeah, they are going to do what they do to get the win by any means necessary. Against the Jets, I feel like you're going to be able to, if you want to try to work on some things offensively, you can, because I don't think the Jets are going to be able to penetrate that Ravens defense.
I think you're absolutely right that they should do it. Do you think they will, though?
Well, I think if the game's in control, I think, and if you're seeing that Darnold's not going to be able to move the football through the air, then I think you can take a few more chances. Like how many points? There's 17-point favorites all of a sudden in this game. One of the biggest favorites we've had in the NFL all year. I just think they can be a little more liberal with what they do offensively.
Yeah, and I think your point about Peters is great. Obviously, he wasn't doing that in L.A. I think Earl Thomas has probably had a great effect on him.
Yep.
You know, Thomas is a guy that a lot of players around the league like. I love his attitude, what he brings. Obviously, he's a champion. And I think that he and Peters are a great fit in that defensive backfield. And I bet he's had a positive effect on him.
And Brandon Carr, who's been in this league now for 12 years, has never missed a single game. 5th-round pick by the Kansas City Chiefs. He and Peters didn't play together there, but have some commonality and is one of the better. I think he just got nominated for the Ed Block Courage Award for that team. I think they have a really good group of people, and Marcus Peters always been kind of an edge player, if you will, and Baltimore's getting the absolute most out of it.
Kawhi Leonard making his long-awaited return to Toronto as a Clipper, and the Toronto faithful couldn't have been nicer. A standing ovation, MVP chants during the pregame ring ceremony. Kawhi finished with 23 points, 5 boards, and 6 assists in the Clippers' win. 112-92 was your final. Broussard, does Kawhi deserve MVP consideration despite all this load management that we keep talking about?
Absolutely not. Kawhi has willingly taken himself out of the top tier regular season awards. And now he's showing you it's all about the playoffs. I'm about rings. I don't think he cares if he's in the MVP race. Now, he's clearly one of the best players in the league, but should he be in it? No. Part of the job description, Nick, is being there. That's part of it.
I would say a major part of it.
Because you're obviously most valuable player. How much value do you have for your team? You're missing games. You're hurting your team. Now, they're 4-3 without him. You said it. I know you're going to say it again. They're going to have a tougher first-round matchup because Kawhi is missing games.
Of course.
So you can't be in the MVP conversation. Now, he's one of the best players in the world. I think he should be in the discussion for best player in the world when he plays. But when you willingly sit out, no, there's no way you'll be the MVP. You won't be first-team All-NBA, even though you may deserve that as well. You'll probably be second team, but he's giving all of this up. And on top of that, Nick, his numbers aren't what they usually are.
Yeah, I mean, when you say he should be in the discussion for best player in the world, outside of the final 3 weeks of last season, he's never been in that discussion, and right now should not be.
I think he should. Well, I don't put him in there because of the missed games and the low management, but
let's just
it's
say,
not just numbers. When the eye test,
he's great. The eye test to me is not that you don't watch him and get the same feeling of when you watch LeBron or Giannis or even this year Luka. Like not to me. And so but you're obviously right on the MVP stuff. Like, just to answer the question, there's been one modern era MVP to not play 70 games if you remove the seasons that weren't 70 games. That's obviously not fair. It was Bill Walton in, I want to say 1978. He got hurt, but the team won 58 games. They were clearly the best team in basketball, and he barely, Dusty can check on this if memory serves, I think he barely beat George Gervin that year. It was very close, but he was on the best team in basketball. Kawhi's not going to be on the best team this year. He's not going to play, forget 70, he might not play 65. Last year he only played 60.
He's on pace for 60, I believe.
He's on pace for the same amount as he played last year. He misses a quarter of the games. And last year, by the way, he was not criticized for this because he was coming off a major injury, and Toronto was, we thought, trying to go above and beyond to try to convince him to stay. Right. So they were being extra, you need a day, take two type of situation. But if we're doing MVP candidates this season, there is a top tier. It is LeBron, Giannis, Luka, Harden, and Anthony Davis over the last few weeks has risen into it. The second tier would be Pascal Siakam, Kemba Walker, we just talked about, and Joel Embiid. Kawhi would be down in that third tier along with Jimmy Butler, I think his teammate Paul George, Donovan Mitchell, Spencer Dinwiddie. That's no. What? That's not an.
So are you saying he's that level of player?
No. I'm saying for the if you were doing your, I don't have a vote. You have a vote. I'm saying if you're doing the balloting, if I'm talking about level of player, that first tier are 5 players who are better than Kawhi Leonard right now.
I would not say they're better. Kawhi, you're right. If you just go by sheer numbers, he doesn't compare to the guys in your top tier.
Yeah.
But if you look at game and impact on the game, eye test, impact on the game, he is definitely in that class. We know how great he is defensively. Offensively, the thing I love about him, and this separates him from most players in the league, most of the great players in the league today, he doesn't need to dominate the ball to be effective. That's where the comparisons to Michael Jordan go. No wasted dribbles, no over dribbling the basketball. 2 dribble, pull up. Mid-range game is incredible. He can get the shot he wants whenever he wants it. And the fact that he doesn't dominate the ball enables him to play with guys. It makes it easy for guys to play with him. That's why he's hardly played with Paul George. They haven't practiced, I don't believe, yet once or certainly not twice together, and they're fitting together seamlessly because Kawhi can get his offense in the flow of the system, and that's a valuable thing. It doesn't look as dominant as Luka or LeBron, a guy that's always, Harden, always has the ball in his hands, but the effectiveness is incredible.
And last night, they blew out a really good Raptors team, a team that has been exceptional at home, and Kawhi was the best player on his team. He and Lou Williams. Paul George had a really rough game yesterday, and they still blew out the Raptors. But there's an element, pardon me, there's an element here to, it's not even revisionist history, it's created history. Kawhi Leonard only twice has been in an MVP discussion for the regular season. The 2016 and 2017 seasons. 2018 he was injured. 2019 he didn't play enough games. And prior to 2016 he was a 17-point per game type of player. He's only had 3 seasons in his career where he averaged more than 20 points per game. We know he's not a playmaker. Now, you mentioned the defense. And there was a point in time when Kawhi Leonard was the best defender in basketball. He and Draymond Green going back and forth for it for a 3-year stretch. That is not what he does anymore. Maybe he can activate it, but Kawhi Leonard, I watched that Milwaukee game. He wasn't head up against Giannis. I watched them against the Rockets. He wasn't head up against Harden because he has the workload on offense. They are not asking him to be the claw defensively that he once was, and so we're assigning it sometimes 2015 Kawhi Leonard defense to 2019 Kawhi Leonard when he's not demonstrating it to me night in, night out.
You had him in the third tier. Would that be different if he wasn't load managing?
Well, of course.
What tier would you have him in?
Based on how he's played, he'd be right there with Pascal Siakam, Kemba Walker, Joel Embiid. He'd be up a tier. His numbers, if you just were to pretend he had played every game this year, his numbers are good. They're not great. He's giving you 24 points, 7 assists, or 7 rebounds, 5 assists on really below his standard of shooting. 45%, 33% from three. Like he would not be with LeBron, Giannis, Luka, Harden, or Anthony Davis, given the way Anthony Davis has played lately.
Something has to be said about the load management, though, because there's this misnomer that, well, the Spurs did this, Duncan did this. Look,
Preach.
Tim Duncan played 82 games 4 times in his first 5 years. Now, I say 82. 1 year was 50, but that was a short season, the full season. He played 77 games his 13th year and his 18th year.
Yes.
His 18th year, Duncan played 77 games, averaged 29 minutes a game. Load management in San Antonio was nothing like what Kawhi is doing. It was more limiting our guys to 31, 32 minutes a game. Nobody plays more than 33, but it wasn't just sitting out 20-some-odd games.
And it was dropping the standard from playing, you're going to play 80 or more unless you suffer an injury, to 74 or more. And nobody is sitting here saying, Kawhi Leonard, Giannis missed last night. Now he's dealing with a slight nagging injury.
He was injured.
But it's the type of thing that probably 25 years ago a guy plays through.
Right.
But guys are smarter now, and it's like, you know what? If Giannis is going to take a game off every 25 games, it's probably smart for him. No one is saying you have to play 80 games or you're not doing your job. But your point on San Antonio inventing it is so important. The inventors of it never did it to this degree, even with a player who had been in the league twice as long as Kawhi's been in the league. Duncan was playing 74 games every year until his final 2 seasons in basketball when he was at the very end.
And again, 77 was, I think, his second to last year.
And so it's just, we've never seen anything like it.
And they need him. Clippers, 15-4 when he plays, and what is he when they're
4-3 when he's out. So yeah, that's the very opposite of the most valuable player.
Yeah.
It's hurting your team when you're sitting out.
All right, let's move on to the AFC West showdown coming this Sunday. Chiefs hosting the Denver Broncos. Patrick Mahomes dealing with that bruised throwing hand this week in practice, but says he's not worried about it. But there's no denying that KC should be worried about their stagnant offense of late. And Mahomes knows that falls squarely on him.
It's just not execution at high enough level, and it starts with me. I feel like there was times in the game where I could have maybe stepped up and bought a little extra time or stayed in the pocket, and I think there's just times, if you look back to last year, where I drift back and don't do the same things that I do at the beginning of the year. And so I'm really focusing in this week on the fundamentals, like I've kind of been saying these last few weeks, but just trying to find a way to where I can help out the offensive line, because they're doing their job of kind of walling those guys around, and I can step up in the pocket and hit these guys and give them time to run routes.
Coming into the season, all we worried about was this Kansas City defense and whether they'd be able to step up in order for this team to make a Super Bowl run. But now after what we saw the last couple of weeks, we're asking if the Chiefs' offense needs to step it up to make a Super Bowl run.
Well, the Chiefs' offense needs to play better than it's played the last 3 weeks of football, but I do not think it is the concern. The concern is still the defense. Right. The defense has been, to their credit, really exceptional the last 3 weeks. Against the Chargers, when the offense had opportunity after opportunity to put the game away, didn't. The Chargers had 4 separate times with the football chance to go tie the game. They forced 1 turnover on downs, 2 interceptions, and a punt. Defense stepped up. The following week against Oakland, in a game where if the Chiefs win that game, they de facto win the AFC West. If they lose that game, they're tied for the AFC West and no longer have the tiebreaker. Oakland had 3 points 59 minutes into that game before a touchdown at the very, very end that didn't matter. And obviously against New England, the defense was spectacular. Lost the turnover battle, allowed a blocked punt, and the defense still held New England to 16 points and a couple goal line stands late. I still need to see more from the defense and see that repeated. The pass defense has been top 10 in the league. Run defense, you've been able to get after them. I have immense faith in this offense. Patrick's right. Since he came back from the knee injury, he was awesome against the Titans, and the 3 games other than that have been below his standard. The worst 3-game stretch of his career. And if I hadn't seen the Titans game, Broussard, I would be worried, well, it's because of the knee injury. He's just not the same guy this year because of the knee injury. But the first game after the knee injury, he was great. But what you still have is the single best quarterback in football, the single best tight end in football, and the single best deep threat in football. The offense is going to be fine. But yes, Jenna, they have to get back to being the Chiefs' offense in order to go on a Super Bowl run, because their path is not going to be beating teams 23-16 the way they did New England. It's going to be beating teams 31-24 the way they were early in the year.
I was going to say, I do think it's a concern because, like you said, they're going to have to outscore teams. I'm not as convinced as you are that this is the defense. This defense is going to play great in the playoffs and stop these teams.
I'm not either.
Okay, so the offense has to get back. And this at times, and I picked Kansas City to make the Super Bowl, but at times this is looking like maybe a lost season for Pat Mahomes. I've compared him. I've said he's had a Jordan-esque start to his career, and I think his potential is the GOAT, potentially. He's got to win, obviously, and continue on. But this is almost looking like Michael Jordan's second year in the league when he got injured. And because Pat Mahomes, whether it was the knee, the ankle, now the hand, in his last 3 games, Nick, he's had 3 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Mm-hmm. He would often get 3 touchdowns and a half. Yep. I mean, like easily.
In a second quarter, his favorite quarter.
Easily. He only had 1 interception in the first 8 games. Now he's had 2 in the last 3. Thrown for less than 200 yards in 2 of those last 3 games. So he does not look himself. I'm not down on him. I don't think teams have figured him out. Although I do think they've gotten a little more comfortable with what he does. And Andy Reid and himself, they'll have to go to the drawing board a little bit because teams are adjusting to him. But I think going forward, he's going to be great. But this year, he's going to have to play much better if they're going to have a chance to.
But isn't there a little relief that you don't have to send him out there and ask him for that offense to score 45 points a night, because the defense, while they're not playing up to your standards or Lee standards, they're playing better.
Well, this is why
you don't need as much from Patrick Mahomes.
Well, this is why I think the Chiefs are underrated right now, because they're going to finish 12-4. Last year they were 12-4 with the defense playing its worst football of the season at the end of the year. Right now they're 12-4 with the defense playing its best football of the season. Big difference, though. Last year, 12-4 was good enough for the 1 seed. This year, 12-4 is probably going to be the 3 seed. But the offense needs to play better. I believe it will. The defense just needs to maintain how it's played the last few weeks. If that happens, the Chiefs will win the Super Bowl.
If the offense gets back to what it was,
and the defense
just stays where it's been. I mean, as the 3 seed, they would be going to New England in the first round, in the second round. They've already won there. And then going to Baltimore. They've played Baltimore twice since Lamar's taken over. They're 2-0 in those 2 games. Did you know that as many as 7 out of 10 adults wished they played a musical instrument? Unfortunately, many never do, because they think it's either too late for them to start or too expensive. Musician is an online music education platform rethinking the way people learn music. It's the fun, easy, and affordable way to learn guitar, piano, bass, ukulele, or even learn to sing. Just download the app to your desktop, tablet, or phone and start playing. Musician is perfect whether you're just starting out or have been playing for years. Enjoy thousands of popular songs, expertly crafted lessons and exercises across dozens of genres. Compared to private lessons, Musician is more affordable, lets you learn on your own schedule. You'll get bite-sized lessons, easy to follow instructions, and exercises tailored to your goals. Using Musician to learn an instrument like guitar or piano is much better than trying to teach yourself. So, if you've been wanting to learn an instrument or simply want some help getting back to playing, check out Musician. You can get an extended 14-day free trial of their premium package at musician.com/play. That's unlimited lessons and unlimited songs on as many instruments as you want for 2 whole weeks. Just go to musician.com/play to start your free trial today. That's YOUSICIAN.com/play.
All right, let's move on to the NBA now. Lakers were in Orlando last night, and LeBron James put the team on his back. The King finishing with 25 points, 11 boards, 10 assists for his 6th triple-double of the season. Lakers win 96-87. They improved to an NBA best 22-3 on the season. And how about this? They also extended their road winning streak to 12 games. Here's LeBron James after the win.
I assert my will when I step on the floor. It's all about just trying to make the right plays, the right passes, the right reads as a point guard on the team, and do the things defensively too to help our team win.
Broussard, is LeBron still the best player in the NBA now that he's shifted to point guard?
Well, who's in the discussion? It's really down to LeBron and Yanis.
Yep.
I would throw Kawhi in there if he played, every night, essentially. Anthony Davis is not in it because with Anthony Davis, if he's on my team, I still need another guy to handle the ball and get it to Anthony Davis. Whereas Giannis can bring the ball up the court and play point guard, essentially. Yep. LeBron obviously can do it. Kawhi. So that's the difference between an AD and these guys. And then James Harden, defensively, he just doesn't get it done. And I just think he needs to change his style up a little bit to win at a higher level. So you're talking about LeBron and Giannis for the best player in the world title. Kawhi can get in there in the playoffs. Like if he dominates the playoffs like he did last year and they win it, then he's in the discussion. But for now, with him sitting out every 4th game, no. Now, LeBron and Giannis, I give LeBron the edge. I didn't think I'd say it. I thought his days of being the best player in the world were over, but I give him a slight edge over Giannis, and here's why. Because I think Giannis, we'll see this year, but he's got maybe too much respect for LeBron. Like when they played last year, it was only one game. And Milwaukee won, but LeBron had 31 and 10 boards, 10 assists, 7 rebounds. Giannis had 16 points, 15 rebounds, but only 16 points and only took like 14 shots. It was his lowest scoring game of the entire second half of the season. And when I watched it, I saw a guy that almost was deferring to somebody he looked up to. Now, maybe it's just in my mind, but that's what I saw, deferring to a guy he'd looked up to maybe most of his life. So I think LeBron still has that edge. And if you look at the playoffs last year, we've never seen LeBron, since that Dallas series, really struggle in the playoffs. Giannis only averaged 22 points a game against Toronto in that conference final, and Kawhi outplayed him and took him out of his game. Giannis shot like 44%, which is unheard of for him.
Yep.
So with those blemishes on his record, I've got to give the edge to LeBron right now.
So you're 100% correct that it's a two-person race. And I know there are some folks that think some of the Kawhi Leonard shade that they think comes from me is because he threatens LeBron. Kawhi Leonard is not. There's one person in the league right now that threatens LeBron's place atop the mountain. It's Giannis. And Giannis one of my 5 favorite players ever, and my 2nd favorite player in the league right now. And if you would have sat right here and made the argument, Giannis is the best player in basketball, I would have disagreed. But it's a strong argument because what Giannis does on both ends of the court, his team has the same record. He doesn't have an Anthony Davis alongside of him. He has a good coach. He has a good supporting cast, but it's not like Hall of Fame coach, Hall of Famers all around him. So I understand the argument for Giannis. The reason I think it still goes to LeBron is not just the playoff part, which is a part of it, which is right now Giannis he has to prove to you that he has learned from that failure in those final 4 games against Toronto, where you wall off the rim, say, find another way to beat me, which is what Toronto did.
And he's added the 3 a little bit, but still.
And I think he will prove that. I think Milwaukee's going to coast to the NBA Finals. I think we are on a collision course between these two guys where they will get to play it out. But the strongest argument LeBron has is not even a statistical one. It is be honest with yourself right now. If you had a great team, awesome players around, and you could add any one player in basketball to it, who would you add? It's LeBron.
If I already had a great team?
You already had a great team, and you can add any one player in basketball, you would add LeBron.
I'm not sure. Not that LeBron wouldn't be the best option individually, but I might add a Kevin Durant.
Okay,
I know Kevin Durant
he has a blown Achilles, so it doesn't.
Okay, I might add a Kawhi. Because I think they fit in. If I had LeBron, all of a sudden it becomes based around LeBron.
Okay, well, but between
really
LeBron and Giannis,
He's going
hold
somewhere.
on.
I'm just saying.
Let me. If you have a terrible team and you can add any one player in basketball, it's LeBron. If you need a guy who is going to be able to play 37 plus minutes a night, 80 games, and you can add any player in basketball, Giannis and LeBron are the answer. If you say we're already in the playoffs, and we're going to have to go through 4 rounds of wars, you can add any player in basketball. The answer is LeBron. He's the answer to all the questions. If we need a small ball 5 to try to match a team that's just going to go pace and space, LeBron might be your first choice. If you need a point guard for a new team that's going to play 2 centers, we just found out LeBron is your first choice. And by the way, he's the greatest forward to ever play. So the answer to all these questions for the last 14 years, last year notwithstanding, has been LeBron. It is somewhat remarkable it still is that. And I think Giannis is going to be the answer for the next decade. I think Giannis and Luka are going to battle this thing out. And the only reason Luka wasn't included for you is I would assume he hasn't done it long enough and doesn't do it enough on the defensive end. Never seen Luka in a playoff war, those, because his numbers this year are off the charts, right? Like that's
I think, look, I've fought against it. But I think at 20 years old, the question has been, is he the best 20-year-old we've ever seen? I go with Magic Johnson because of what he did in the finals that year, rookie year. But I think you have to put Luka over LeBron as a 20-year-old.
As a 20-year-old?
Just because of the way he's leading Dallas in a tough Western Conference to what, the 4th seed right now?
Right now they're the 3rd seed, actually. So and
the numbers obviously are a little better.
A debate for another day. But the one other thing for the Lakers, the only player on that team other than LeBron that has a track record of winning is Danny Green. The only
Rondo.
You know what? You're absolutely right. Rondo, you're correct. I was thinking of the starting lineup.
Avery
You're correct.
Bradley,
Avery Bradley had some winning.
Right.
Dwight Howard had winning early in his career, but not late. Anthony Davis doesn't. Kuzma obviously doesn't. And by the way, Frank Vogel doesn't have a great track record of winning. He had the couple years in Indiana.
But he's a good coach. Very good coach.
LeBron has been on and off the court the driving force on that team.
No question.
For the best team in the NBA.
I think you fudged it a little because there were a lot of players with some winning backgrounds on that team.
How about
he is the engine. I'll give you that for the whole franchise.
Nobody on that team other than LeBron and Danny Green have a recent history of winning.
Back here, first things first, talk about the Patriots and the newest addition to New England's injury report, which is Julian Edelman. Tom Brady's favorite target missed yesterday's practice with a knee injury. That to go along with his already nagging shoulder injury. Edelman has more than 1,000 yards this season. No other Patriots wide receiver or tight end even has 350 yards this season. Nick, what happens to the Patriots' Super Bowl hopes if Edelman is not healthy?
Well, the Super Bowl hopes are already dangling by a thread. And the thread is, can this defense that has been sensational all year get to the level it was at the first 2 months, which was 85 Bears defense, at least as far as pass defense? With or without Edelman, that is still their only path. But without him, that becomes not only their only path, but an utter necessity to even win a single playoff game. If you don't have Julian Edelman, then as much as I think the offensive struggles have been because of the deterioration of the quarterback, then Brady will have no established weapons he has a rapport with. He, thus far, all year, it's been very odd to me. So many of the people who argue Julian Edelman is a Hall of Famer are simultaneously arguing Tom Brady's got no one to throw to, but the Hall of Famer Julian Edelman is still out there. Now, he's obviously not a Hall of Famer, but he is a very good player. But the biggest difference is it's just a numbers issue. Right now, smart teams are realizing just double Edelman. Just put 2 guys on Edelman, bracket him, put a corner on James White, and then what are you going to do? What that allows for is deep down the field passing, but Brady can't make those throws at this moment, and I don't know if he'll be able to at any moment moving forward. If you take Edelman out of there, then you don't have to double whoever replaces him. That person go and run support. That person can all of a sudden be the deep safety that could, in theory, take away the downfield passing if you're worried about it, if Brady rediscovers it. So he is, to me, Edelman, Broussard is their second most important offensive player behind Brady. I don't think many people would disagree with that. I know some people would say it's, if they lose their right guard, they can't compete. It's unfair. But this would be a really critical injury or a critical missing piece at the wrong time of the year.
Even with Edelman, the only reason to believe the Patriots can get to the Super Bowl is just their history. Just that, hey, you can never write him off. It's Tom Brady. It's Bill Belichick. That's it, even with Edelman. So without him, look, and I'll fall victim to that as well. I won't write them off until they're dead this year. Until a team beats them in the playoffs, I will not write them off. But I certainly won't pick them with or without Edelman. Now, like I said, this week I think is big for them. Can you establish N'Keal Harry and Mohamed Sanu, or at least one of them, as a legitimate threat as a receiver? Because they still have James White and Sony Michel, mainly White as a receiver out of the backfield, but they become even more predictable than they already are if Edelman isn't there. So, yeah, I think without him, and I don't think he's, like you said, he's not a Hall of Famer. He's not some outstanding player, but he's comfortable with Tom Brady. They got a great relationship on and off the field, and that's his main guy. Now, remember, they did win a Super Bowl without Gronk.
Yep.
But you still had other weapons. And I've said it, Brady at 42 cannot carry mediocre talent to a Super Bowl.
It's not only that they've won Super Bowls in the past with missing pieces, but their quarterback was better. Was way better. Like I want to make sure everyone understands. I think Tom Brady for a long time was the best quarterback in football, and then shortly
you think he's the GOAT too,
of
right?
course.
Yeah, okay.
And shortly thereafter, when he was no longer the best quarterback in football, he was top 3, top 5. Last year, top 10. It hasn't been this is the first year since we've known Tom Brady as Tom Brady that he's been below average. He won the MVP in 2017. Last year, you saw the deterioration, but he was still better than the majority of quarterbacks in football. One other note about Edelman, Jenna, is the I think, fraudulent Hall of Fame case, but the case that's made for him is based solely around how great he is in the postseason. Like, he is reliable in the postseason. He's wildly productive in the postseason. If you remember, Brady was upset when they moved on from Danny Amendola after 2 years ago because Amendola made the huge play in the AFC Championship game against Jacksonville. Amendola was a guy who he felt he could rely on in the postseason. Gronk was a guy, obviously, he could rely on in the postseason. The only guy on their roster of note that would have any postseason receptions outside of Edelman with the Patriots be James White. Or Philip Dorsett, I should say. Philip Dorsett, the last year, had a couple. But so, yes, it would be an enormous loss.
It's not like Sanu and N'Keal Harry are right there, and they're about to break out with Edelman out. Sanu had, I think, 1 target, 2 targets maybe last week. N'Keal Harry had 2 snaps last week. It's not like they've really been getting them into the offense. And also, when it comes to that defense, I know everyone's so gung-ho on them, but look at their opposition the first couple weeks of the season, and look who they now have to play the next couple weeks, maybe this weekend notwithstanding in the Bengals, but into the playoffs. I don't know if you can fully rely on that defense to button everything up, to give the Patriots often a chance without Julian Edelman in there.
Well, look, let's see what Kansas City becomes. If they get back to their old self, then they score big points on that defense, okay? And I don't know if Brady can score enough to play with them. Baltimore, look, are we going to say Bill Belichick can't come up with a strategy the second time around against Lamar Jackson to stop him? I think there's a shot at that. In Houston, I just can't trust it all. I saw what they did to New England, but I can't trust them at all.
One note, though, because we're talking about Kansas City, Baltimore, as assuming the Patriots are the 2 seed, they'd be the 1 and the 3 in Baltimore and Kansas City. If Edelman does not play, forget this weekend, next weekend, they could lose to Buffalo. Buffalo played them.
They almost lost them
They needed a blocked punt touchdown to beat them the first time. Now, I know that one was in Buffalo as opposed to in Foxborough, where this one will be. If the Patriots lose one more game, they fall to the 3 line. Kansas City's done losing. I said earlier in the year, Kansas City wasn't going to lose again until next season. I was a week early on that. But Kansas City is, you look at the rest of their schedule, they're not going to lose the rest of the way. They now have the tiebreaker with New England. The reason that's relevant, if New England falls to the 3 line, it's not just that they have never made a Super Bowl without having a bye. It's that you would be playing in the first round of the playoffs a team with a great defense like Pittsburgh or like Buffalo for a 3rd time potentially, and those teams are going to be able to choke out the Patriots offense as it's going. Doesn't mean they can't win that game. Right. But you're going to have to win that game 13-10.
In Foxborough, you're not taking Josh Allen over Tom Brady.
In 2 weeks, I think if I think it'll be first 1 to 17 wins. How about that?
It might be, but that first one will be the Patriots.
Okay. All right.
Back here, first things first, we're joined by former All-Pro running back Brian Westbrook.
What
hey,
up,
Brian.
Good morning.
Good to see you, brother.
Good morning,
brother.
It is great to see. This grew a little longer.
Yeah, I know.
Am I right?
It did.
Okay.
You're absolutely right. See, I like that you noticed that.
I do two things
appreciate
well.
that.
I notice if anyone's facial hair changes, like if it got longer, shorter haircut.
What's the other thing?
Well, I haven't come up with that yet, but it's, figure
Those
it
are
out.
talents. Those are talents.
Time for Where Would You Like to Be, sponsored by Visa. Everywhere you want to be in tonight, we would love to be in Baltimore with the Ravens hosting the Jets on Fox. Lamar Jackson has his Ravens team on a 9-game win streak. Big game for Lamar tonight. He could break Michael Vick's single-season quarterback rushing record. Ravens could clinch their second straight divisional title, but none of that happens if Lamar's quad injury holds him back. Nick, let's start there. Should the runaway MVP change his style of play until that quad heals?
Well, realistically, I don't know that the quad's going to fully heal until next year. I mean, he's not going to take time off. Maybe week 17. They're 2 wins away from clinching the 1 seed, let's assume the Patriots don't lose along the way. If they 2 more wins, they'll have the 1. So maybe they get week 17 off. That's always a little risky, though, because then you also have a bye, and they would have at that point won 11 straight games and then take 3 weeks off without playing. Quad injury is probably not going to fully heal. What I do think, though, has to happen, Brian, the Ravens right now have one weakness that I can see. Defense played great since Marcus Peters been there. I think John Harbaugh is excellent. They have the best analytics team in football, the best kicker in football, the best running game in football. Their quarterback's going to win league MVP. So what's the weakness? Man, their outside passing has been non-existent.
Yep.
They're passing to wide receivers. Hollywood Brown, the rookie, is their best wide receiver this year. He has 3 games with 50 or more yards receiving, and it's against Miami, Arizona, first 2 weeks of the year, and Cincinnati. Their second leading receiver, Willie Snead, it's been 2 months since he had 20 yards receiving in a game, and you do worry that when they get to the postseason, especially if they're playing a team for the second time, or in Kansas City's case would be a third time with Lamar, that they are going to force them, at least to a degree, pass the ball outside and deep down the field, not just to your tight ends and running backs. That's what I think they need to work on. And if the quad injury is more of a reason for it, so be it. But I'd be saying that if Lamar were 1,000% healthy.
Yeah, I think they certainly need to find a way to get the ball to the outside. But they've won a bunch of games in a row without having that ability.
Yes.
And so changing his style, it's just hard to do. I mean, Lamar Jackson is one of the most instinctual runners that we've seen of the football in a very long time. And so the only way to really change his style is to not run the option. And because the option is dictated by the defense. If the defense takes the running back, then he keeps the football. So how does that change? The only thing that you can change is Greg Roman saying, hey, instead of taking that hit down the field, which he's taken a lot of big hits these last few weeks, once you try to slide, once you do something different, we don't need those extra yards because our defense has played so well. And you made the point about the defense. They've done a great job. In the last 4 games, 6 takeaways. Lamar Jackson doesn't have to win the game for him at this point all by himself. You can be a little bit safer in some of your decision-making if you're the quarterback.
Look, teams are targeting his legs. And you said it, maybe the quad doesn't heal fully, but it could get re-aggravated or re-injured worse. So if you keep him in the pocket, they can't really hit you, Laura. They're not supposed to, okay? But if you get out there and run, even if you run the option and you give it to the running back, you can still get hit. And I think more teams should be hitting him once he gives up the ball because he's a potential runner at that point. So I think that's where you might say, combined with what Nick said, because you're right. This is a good week. The Jets are good against the run. They're bad against or mediocre at best against the pass. So this is a week to let Lamar kind of stay in the pocket for the most part, try to work on hitting the outside receivers, and you still probably beat a Jets team that's not that good. So that's where I think theoretically they should do it. But to your point, I don't think, number one, Lamar wants to do it because he's already said, I'm 100% meaning.
Right.
John Harbaugh said it's not a serious injury, he's day-to-day. And instinctively, you have to play the way that's best for him. So I don't think they will make the change, but I think they should for this game.
This team is in a groove right now. And when you're in a groove like they're in right now, you don't change very much. You say, just keep playing this way. We'll rest you guys week 17 if we need to. We'll get that first round bye. Everyone gets a little bit healthy, but keep playing the way that you're playing. I wouldn't change anything.
Well, that's just it. How important is the win for them? How much does Harbaugh want the win as opposed to Harbaugh trying out a couple different things with Lamar Jackson?
No, the win's critical. If they lose the game, because their final 2 games of the year are against 2 teams that are potential. Well, one team that's I think going to be a playoff team in Pittsburgh, and one team playing in Cleveland, the only team other than the Chiefs that's beaten them in this regular season. And Cleveland's still hanging by a thread, but still alive for the postseason. No. I don't think they will do anything to sacrifice the victory. I just think there's a whole bunch of ways you can beat the Jets. I think they can beat the Jets, but while also trying different things out. I don't think you have to. You don't go into this game like the San Francisco game, which is we have to do exactly what we do as well as we possibly can do it in order to win the football game on a last-second field goal. I don't think the Jets will score 13 points in this game. Vegas has the Ravens as 16.5, 17-point favorites. And I'm not trying to tear down what Lamar's doing. Lamar's the league MVP. He has been the most effective player in the league this year. What I am trying to say is Lamar's made it very clear. He doesn't, at least he's said it. I don't care about the MVP. I don't care about that. I want to win. I want to win the Super Bowl. And if I am game planning for the Ravens, I don't think that I can stop their running game without adding even more, dedicating more people to it. And the way to take advantage of that is deep down the field passing and passing outside of the numbers, not just to your trio of excellent tight ends. Since the start of week 5, the only quarterback in football has averaged fewer yards passing than Lamar is Dwayne Haskins. They also have not lost since the start of week 5. So what they're doing is working. The question is, can it work 3 consecutive times against really good teams in the postseason?
Well, it's worked a bunch against a lot of very good teams. The other thing is that teams know that. Teams know they haven't passed the ball to the outside. Teams know they're trying to get the ball to Hurts as well as Andrew in the middle of the field. They know that. So they've been trying to take that away. You don't think the San Francisco 49ers wanted to take exactly those things away? And so I'm not sure that it's possible for that to happen. But this is how good the defense has been. They gave up 16 points to Seattle, 7 points to Houston, 17 points to a juggernaut in the San Francisco 49ers. That defense has been very good. So instead of running Lamar 12 times like he averages per game, how about you just dial it back just a little bit? Run them 6 times instead of 12. You'll still win the game tonight easily, and then you allow him to rest a little bit while playing.
And to your point, San Francisco kind of did take those things away. You held them to 20 points.
And I would say San Francisco was successful on it, right?
Right. They just couldn't score enough against that defense. So.
Westbrook, a little in or out?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. Patriots insider Tom Curran had the internet buzzing yesterday with his suggestions that Tom Brady could be playing for the Miami Dolphins in 2020. Broussard, you in or out on Brady being back with the Patriots next season?
I'm not going to try to go against Tom Curran's intel. I mean, obviously, he's plugged in with the Patriots, and he's a great reporter. But I just think at the end of the day, what's your alternative next year? Now, we talk about Joe Montana leaving San Francisco. They had Steve Young. We talk about Peyton Manning, Indianapolis moving on. They had Andrew Luck. New England doesn't have that guy unless they're going out to get somebody else they have their eye on already. So I just think at the end of the day, Robert Kraft and Tom Brady will work something out where I would bet that he's probably back. And they go get better receivers.
He's the best quarterback in franchise history, in the history of the NFL. They don't have a backup. They tried to go out this year and get some guys to replace Gronkowski. They tried to get Antonio Brown because they needed weapons on their offense. If they get some more weapons on that offense, Tom Brady could potentially be back to a position where he's one of the better in top half of the league as far as quarterbacks.
So I don't think he's going to be with the Dolphins. But I also don't think he's going to be back with the Patriots. I'm out. And you guys are, a lot of people are presenting it from this perspective of the Patriots have nothing to replace him with. That ain't Tom Brady's problem. I'm not necessarily saying the Patriots.
It's him. Okay.
He wanted a contract extension. They refused to give him one. He wanted them to keep Antonio Brown. They refused to do that. He clearly is frustrated with the lack of weapons around him, and he clearly doesn't like jokers like me on TV saying he's the problem rather than his receivers. There is a team in Los Angeles who has great receivers, who has an aging quarterback that is also not under contract next year, in a city in which he owns a house. And speaking of houses, it is not a coincidence that the day after it was announced Tom Brady didn't get his contract extension, he publicly put his house on the market in Brookline, Mass. Like, there's a lot of smoke here. Tom Curran's been all over it. I don't think it's the Dolphins, but I do think Tom Brady plays football next year, and unless the Patriots make a miraculous Super Bowl run, he might decide, I want to go do this somewhere.
Chargers go from one aging quarterback to an aging-er quarterback?
Yeah, an even older quarterback.
All right, just making sure I got that. On to Thursday Night Football now. Lamar Jackson needs just 23 rushing yards tonight to break Michael Vick's single-season rushing record for a quarterback. Broussard, you in or out on Lamar breaking Vick's record tonight?
I'm in on this. I mean, even if they do what we've suggested and don't run him as much, he only needs 23 yards. Yeah. He's had 6 is his season low. That was in the first game against Miami.
They didn't have to.
Right, 5 touchdowns. Since then, I think 40's his season low. 39 would be his low since he became a starter, other than the 6 yards. So, yeah, I'm in on this. I think he breaks it.
I'm in also. I just think this happens probably in the first series of the game. Lamar Jackson breaks long runs all the time. This happens first series, probably first quarter. Sorry, Michael Vick.
It is the only question is, will it happen before halftime?
Yeah.
And so I'm absolutely in. It would be shocking to me if he doesn't break the record tonight.
All right, on to the Dallas Cowboys now. Reports are Urban Meyer is interested in the Dallas head coaching job. So, Broussard, you in or out on Urban Meyer being a good fit as the Cowboys' next head coach?
I'm in. If he really wants, if Urban's in, I'm in. Look, everywhere he's gone, I know it's only been college, but everywhere he's been, he has turned them around into a great team. I also think he goes in there. Now, I'm sure he would talk with Jerry Jones like, I want to be able to run the team my way. The team. Not the franchise, just the team. And you look at a Chip Kelly, he got in trouble because he was doing too much. So just coach the team. I think he has the gravitas where the players would have to respect him versus maybe a Jason Garrett. So, yeah, I'm in on Urban Meyer being a good choice.
I'm out, and I'll point to Chip Kelly himself. And Chip Kelly was a great college coach, but translating that into the pros is totally different. I think when you talk to college kids that have no other choice but to be there at that school and hopefully get into the NFL, that's a different way that you talk to grown men that have been in the NFL for 5, 6, 7, 8 years that are getting paid much more than you are. I think it's difficult for college coaches to understand that. Urban Meyer seems to me to be a control freak, and that's going to be hard to deal with, especially with Jerry Jones as well. I'm absolutely out.
I think Urban is a superb coach, and if he has his health in order, he would be a positive addition to any college football team and a lot of pro football teams. I'm out on him with the Cowboys because the Cowboys have a ready-made roster. The Cowboys are ready to win right now, and any college coach that's never coached in the NFL is a gamble on whether or not he's going to be Jimmy Johnson or whether or not he's going to be Chip Kelly.
They need young players. That's what they need.
And so, agreed. And so I would go with a Ron Rivera type, if not Ron Rivera himself, a guy that can coach in this league and bring a level of toughness to the team that I think is lacking under Jason Garrett. So no disrespect to our friend Urban Meyer, I don't think he's a good fit with Dallas. Might be a good fit with the Giants if he had interest in that, a team like that that's rebuilding, but not a team that I think is a ready-made contender right now.
All right, back to Tom Brady now. His favorite target, Julian Edelman, missed practice yesterday with knee and shoulder injuries. Broussard, you're in or out on the Patriots being Super Bowl contenders with an injured Julian Edelman?
The key word is in. Contender, and I'm in.
Okay.
On that. Contender. I'm not in on being a favorite at all. I'm not in even with Edelman on that. But, yeah, I'm not going to write them off and say they couldn't get to the Super Bowl without Julian Edelman. I don't think it'll happen. But, yeah, definition of contender, they're still in.
I'm out. I've watched that offense, and I have not been impressed with Julian Edelman on the field. They have no run game. They have no go-to receivers besides Julian Edelman. If he's not on the field, who are they going to throw the ball to? Harry, he's coming along. They got a bunch of young guys, but Tom Brady has no confidence in those guys. I'm out.
Chris Broussard, you know what I'm doing right now? I am literally writing the Patriots off. When we finish that, I'm out.
Has that not happened before?
With talent.
I have predicted that they would lose a playoff game and been wrong about that. I have
Predicted versus writing them off. Semantics.
Let me
Semantics.
Think. Did I say the end of the Patriot era was going to be in Kansas City in the AFC Championship game last year? I did. I still think I was right about that, if I'm going to be told. Brady threw a pick to lose the game.
I don't even remember a pick. Is
I don't
there any
even remember
record
what
of
happened.
a pick?
But regardless, that's ancient.
record
You
of a
bringing
pick.
up old stuff now, man. The Patriots with Edelman are a barely fringe contender given how they've played the last 6 weeks, given how their offense looks. Without Edelman, you can write them off entirely. I am out. Written off. Mark
Hard
it down.
to write them off until they've been written off.
That's all I'm saying.
I did just write them off.
The Rockets were in Cleveland last night to play the Cavs. How about James Harden? Just another ho-hum monster night, 55 points, including 20 in the fourth quarter. Harden went 10 of 18 from deep, only needed 5 free throws to drop the double nickel. Rockets hold off the Cavs for the 116-110 win. Nick, is James Harden the best scorer since Wilt?
No, he's second best scorer since Wilt. Wilt, Jordan, Harden. And I think Harden has now passed Elgin, Rick Barry, who gets forgotten in this, and Kobe, the KD. And the Kobe one, I think, is important because Kobe had a year where scoring was the only thing that he was worried about. It was because they couldn't win the title that year. It was the second year without Shaq. And he averaged the 81-point game year, the 62 3/4, and he averaged 35.5. Harden averaged more than that last year and is going to average more than that this year. This year he might average 40. But I think Harden's done something maybe more notable than become the best scorer since Wilt. I think James Harden this year has right now, and it's a list he doesn't want to be at the top of, but I think he's now at the top of it. I believe James Harden is the best player in NBA history to not have a ring.
Wow.
I think he's surpassed Iverson. He's surpassed CP3, obviously, Patrick Ewing, Elgin, who I love, and I think Elgin is one of the most underrated guys ever. And he's even surpassed our mutual friend Charles Barkley and Karl Malone. I think James Harden is the best player in the history of the NBA without a title. He would like to instead become just the 14th best or 17th best player with the title. I'm sure at some point that's where he wishes to be, but that's what I think. And I know you and I can parse on the scoring thing. I knew you'd probably be taken aback by the best player without a ring.
I'm still.
But I mean, he's led the league in assists. He's led the league in scoring. He's won the MVP. He's finished second 3 separate times. Tough to find a better resume of the guys without a ring than the one James Harden.
He's a phenomenal player. There's no doubt about it. I actually voted for him to win another MVP award the first year Steph Curry won it. I would argue maybe Barkley over Harden. Barkley, arguably inch for inch. That's not a term many people use, but inch for inch. The greatest player we've ever seen. I mean, 6'4", really, as a power forward, was a terrific rebounder. Got his team to the finals. Harden hadn't even done that. I mean,
he's been in the finals, but it wasn't his
coming off the bench with Durant and Westbrook. So Barkley at least got a team to the finals and gave Michael Jordan, a lot of trouble in that series. I might also put Malone over him. Obviously, Malone's third all-time scoring?
Second all-time scoring, and he has 2 MVPs to Harden's 1.
Right.
Malone's longevity and durability. We'd never seen a player as durable as Malone until LeBron. To me, Barkley and Malone are the 2 best players without a ring, and Elgin gets forgotten. He's third. But I think Harden over the last couple of years surpassed him. And here's the thing about taking a team to the finals. Would Barkley have taken a team to the finals if Jordan and the Bulls were in his conference? The answer is no. Look, Harden took his team to what was the de facto NBA Finals, the Western Conference Finals, against KD and Steph and the Warriors, and they were up 3-2 until the second best player got hurt. They were up 15 in Game 7 of that. Does that make sense? Like that to me, that was the NBA Finals.
But Barkley did have to, I don't remember if they played at this point, but Olajuwon, David Robinson, those guys were in the West. Karl Malone and John Stockton.
It was brutal.
The West was tough. But to your point, looking at circumstances, I think there are other players you could put in Mike D'Antoni's system that Harden's green light is unbelievable. If you put Steph Curry in that system,
he couldn't hold
You
up.
don't think?
No.
I don't know that Harden holds up because he doesn't get it done in the playoffs.
Well, so last year, it should be noted, last year, James Harden averaged more points, assists, higher field goal percentage in the playoffs in his 6 games against the Warriors than Kawhi did in his 6 games against the Warriors, against a tougher Warriors team that was much healthier. And Kawhi's team won. He's finals MVP, and it's considered an amazing performance. Harden's team loses, even though Harden, we could put them side by side.
His numbers were great.
Were great. So I don't think it's fair to say there's one playoff series where I feel like he got concussed in it. A few years ago, the one against San Antonio, where
he had other struggles against Golden State
early.
He
had the 10 turnovers in a closeout game. I get it, but he plays. The thing about Steph is Harden plays every night. Plays super high minutes, has to do all of it. If other guys could do it, they would.
No, they wouldn't. No, they wouldn't, because this isn't proven to win. And you play to win the game, to quote the great Herm Edwards. And that's why, even though Kawhi's numbers aren't as big as Harden's were against the Warriors, Kawhi gets the love because they won. I just think, and I don't want to take anything away from Harden, because he is historically great. But if Kevin Durant shot as much as James Harden, he could do this. If Kobe Bryant even.
Kobe did. Kobe did.
James Harden has shot 40. I know they can throw out effective field goal percentage because he's a good free throw shooter. He gets to the line and the three-pointers. He's shooting 34% from 3. He's shooting 14 threes a game.
Yeah.
How many guys couldn't shoot 14 threes a game and put up huge numbers?
Again, so I just public service announcement.
And he shot 44% the last 6 years.
If other guys could do it, you should do it, because it's a route to $500 million in career earnings, an MVP, and a bunch of runners up. Like, other guys would want those things. Real quick on Steph. So you think Steph, when he comes back, because his team's going to need it, or Steph, if he hadn't broke his hand.
No, he won't do it.
Steph, if he hadn't broke his hand, could do this.
If you put him in Mike D'Antoni's system, just like we saw Steve Nash. Steve Nash would not, with all due respect, would not be a Hall of Famer if he wasn't in Mike D'Antoni's system. Harden would not be averaging these outlandish numbers were it not for Mike D'Antoni's system. If you put Russ in, give him the ball and take Harden off the team, I'm not saying he'd average 39, but he would put up some astronomical numbers as well. And let me ask you this, Nick. Are you one that says LeBron could average a triple-double for a season?
I don't think,
because I'm saying if
that
he
was
could,
the only,
then do it.
If that was the only thing that mattered to him, sure. I think the rebounding's really hard. I think averaging 10 rebounds a game is really hard. I don't think but Harden, it's led to winning. If that were the only thing that mattered. But for Harden, it led to 1 seed. Okay, we got to
leave it there. Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern.